My name is Jacob, and you're watching my show about literature. And only literature. There is an elegant dialogue that occurs between the authors of Heroes. They take the clay from the reservoir of inspiration and mold it into a form which is courageous and noble. But in their construction, there are defining variations which separate each author's creation from the common design, with Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian being no exception. He follows the traditional arc of the hero as outlined by Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, tracing the paths of Achilles, Gilgamesh, Beowulf, and a pantheon of others in a mirrored fashion with the exception of one small but critical detail. He does not possess a supernatural or regal heritage. As is usually the case, classical heroes are born into the world with traits that set them apart from the average man by virtue of their lineage. The reason that they are so strong or intelligent is because they are bred from the superior stock of a deity or a line of nobility. Achilles, in addition to being the successor to the crown of his father Peleus, is the son of the nymph Thetis. Beowulf is the grandson of Hrethel, who is the king of the Geats. Gilgamesh possesses the distinction of being the fifth king of Uruk and a demigod. The same cannot be said for Conan, whose heritage is about as humble and common as they come. It is revealed to us that he is the son of a blacksmith in the land of Samaria, which derives a certain amount of notoriety for the fact that it's a very gloomy country full of sullen barbarians. The question we should ask ourselves then is why Howard chose to deviate from the classical model considering the nature of his material. It would seem more appropriate to adhere to the conventions of ancient mythology. However, once we come to understand the worldviews of the classical authors in Howard, it is clear that their views on the nature of heroism could not be more diametrically opposed. For the ancients, life was a terrifying struggle against ominous and oftentimes malicious supernatural forces. Perhaps the greatest evidence of this fact is the nearly universal personification of the natural elements in developing cultures. From lightning gods to tricksters, we find the same deities operating under different names. But no matter what form they took, there would always be supplicants praying for mercy. I've always thought that this polytheistic attitude derived from a primal recognition of humanity's inability to control their environment. When an event appears to be beyond what can be accomplished by a mere human being, the cause is then attributed to be supernatural. The function of the demigod in the heroic narrative is directly related to this understanding in that they serve as a tangible link between the natural and supernatural worlds. They are the embodiment of the otherworldly power contained within an earthly frame. In addition to this, their heroic escapades are likewise credited to the secret machinations of the gods. Because they are endowed with the supernatural, it is only logical to assume that their fate is intimately tied to the mysterious goings-on behind the scenes. They are destined for greater things than any mortal could dream of. The regal component comes into play, once again, by virtue of the supernatural heritage. It should come as no surprise that sovereigns have consistently justified their position by claiming a divine right to rule. After all, who has more authority to rule man than the offspring of the gods who rule all things? Clearly, the ancients desired to maintain a very close connection with and understanding of the otherworldly aspects of their existence by imbuing their heroes with ties to the supernatural. So, to summarize, I think the most important concern for classical authors as it pertains to the qualifications of the hero is, to quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, "Who is your daddy, and what does he do?" Now, as for Howard and how he portrays Conan's relationship with the supernatural, I must say that his depiction can be considered a rejection of the classical model. While the supernatural is evident within his works, Howard's menagerie of demons, monsters, gods, and goddesses aren't nearly as pervasive as they are in sources of antiquity. In fact, it can very easily be said that Howard maintains a very strict segregation of the natural and supernatural worlds, a division which is exemplified and maintained by the character of Conan. As I mentioned previously, a glance at Conan's heritage reveals that he has no connections with either divinity or royalty. He is simply an adventuring barbarian who accomplishes his goals with his wits and brute strength. These attributes typify the worldview of Howard that was influenced by his upbringing in the wild expanses of early 20th century Texas. Rod Green, who is the series editor of a 2009 publication of the Complete Tales of Conan, tells us that the young Howard was able to visit forts and former frontier towns, places where people told stories of Wild West gunfights and the Indian Wars. Being raised in a rugged environment that stressed the individual's power to effect change rather than relying on arbitrary and unseen forces caused Howard to develop a radically different definition of a hero. Rather than extraordinary people caught up in extraordinary circumstances, the author conceived of an ordinary person forced to adapt to a ruthless environment that fostered the latent potential of an individual to thrive. In Conan's case, his power is not bestowed but earned through decades of hardship and trial. And, there is no Deus ex machina explanation that conveniently explains his physical prowess or the results as the results of a god's blood flowing through his veins. He simply had to be strong and survive. There is no kingly connection that he can rely on to ingratiate himself with his subjects. There is only the authority of his sword to keep people in line and to get people to respect him. If anything else, Conan is distinctly anti-hereditary. Legacies are meaningless and are described as a liability and a weakness. This is exactly the same nameless lone gunman mentality that espoused itself in Howard's childhood stories. These individuals were forced to be reckoned with not because of their supernatural or regal heritage, but because of their tenacity and their ability to stand on their own 2 feet where a lesser man would have perished. But nowhere else is the rejection of the royal demigod more evident than in the story of the Scarlet Citadel, where Conan kills Sotha. Peleus recounts a rumor that men say that a dancing girl of Shadazar slept too near the pre-human ruins of on Dogoth Hill and woke in the grip of a black demon. From that unholy ruin was spawned an accursed hybrid. What else could Howard be describing here but the creation of a demigod? Whether purposefully or not, he sets up a great conflict between the traditional hero and one of his own design, while simultaneously inverting the standard by having the former play the part of the villain and the latter take up the role as the destroyer of the classical definition. In doing so, Howard asserts his position on the definition of heroism by integrating the accepted noble qualities into Conan, but removing the supernatural basis. Thanks for watching. As always, if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Feel free to comment and say anything you want. And hey, tune in next time. We're going to be continuing our study of Conan. So, peace!